Welcome to the presentation on using the Single IRB model at the University of Utah. I'm Ann Johnson, the IRB Associate Director at the University of Utah.
And I'm Sarah Mumford, an IRB Operations Manager at the University of Utah. This presentation has been created to help provide education to investigators and study teams on how to use the Single IRB model at the University of Utah specifically. This video is part 2 of a 2-part series. Part 1 includes overall information about using a Single IRB model, which is applicable to the majority of research institutions pursuing this approach. We encourage you to view the video for Part 1 to gain a better understanding of the Single IRB model in general. The purpose of this presentation is to describe 2 different processes. First, we will discuss the process investigators who would like to use the University of Utah as a Single IRB for a multi-site study. This is the process for any lead study team that is using the University of Utah as a Single IRB for this study, even if the lead study team is external to the University of Utah. Second, we will discuss the process that University of Utah researchers must follow when relying on an external Single IRB. In this case, the University of Utah would be considered a relying institution. This is the process anytime you are not using the University of Utah IRB as a Single IRB, even if you are the lead study team of a study. We remind you that there are 4 key stakeholders in the Single IRB model. First, the Single IRB. Second, the relying site HRPP. Third, the lead study team. And fourth, the participating study team. Each one of these stakeholders has a role to perform when using the Single IRB model, and this presentation will address how the stakeholders interact specifically with the University of Utah. We begin with the process for using the University of Utah as a Single IRB. Before a lead site can begin working with the University of Utah as the Single IRB, the planning and preparation stage must begin. The lead site has many responsibilities during the planning and preparation stage. You, and possibly your collaborators from participating study teams, will begin developing the protocol. You will also need to begin site selection. You do not need a final list of participating sites during this stage, but the IRB will need to have an idea of an approximate number of sites and names in order to begin the reliance agreement negotiations. You must also be able to describe the study procedures that will occur at each site, recognizing that some participating sites may only be responsible for performing a subset of the study procedures. You must also be able to describe the study procedures that will occur at each site, recognizing that some participating sites may only be responsible for performing a subset of the study procedures. You must also begin preparing a study-specific template for the consent document. Generally, each participating site will use its own version of the consent document, which will include study-specific information as well as site-specific information. The goal is to have the study-specific information remain identical in all consent versions while allowing the site-specific information to be customized. An initial consent template is available on the University of Utah IRB website. When it comes to recruitment plans, institutions have different policies and practices for acceptable methods of recruitment. In order to provide acceptable options for each site, you can develop a menu of recruitment methods and materials that are appropriate for your study overall. Then, the IRB will be able to approve all of the methods, and participating sites will be able to use the methods that work for their own institution. The protocol should include a study-wide data and safety monitoring plan. Data monitoring ensures that you are collecting and recording accurate data and you are maintaining compliant research records. A safety monitoring plan is needed to look at the participant safety across all sites. Your data and safety monitoring plan must be clear about who will perform the necessary monitoring. If any monitoring activities will be delegated to the participating study teams, this should be clearly stated. It is advised that the lead study team review the data and safety monitoring guidance on the University of Utah IRB website for detailed instructions on writing a plan. The next stage is to initiate reliance on the University of Utah as the Single IRB. It is important to note that the planning and preparation stage may still be in process when you begin your conversation with the University of Utah IRB. The first step to initiate the Single IRB process is for the lead PI to submit a reliance consultation request to the University of Utah IRB. This is an online request form available on the IRB website. Then, the IRB will schedule a consultation with the lead study team to discuss the specifics of your study. This is when the IRB will need to know the names of the sites that you are expecting to participate. You will always be able to add more sites, but this is our starting point. Once the IRB has agreed to serve as a Single IRB for your study, the IRB will start the reliance negotiation process with relying site HRPPs. All reliance agreement negotiation will be handled by the University of Utah IRB and the relying site HRPPs. Once your protocol, consent document, and other study materials are ready, the lead study team may begin a new study application in the ERICA online system, which is the IRB submission system for the University of Utah IRB. If you are external to the University of Utah, you will need to request an ERICA account. This will be addressed in the Reliance consultation meeting. You may begin the new study application even if the Reliance negotiation process is still occurring with one or more of the participating sites. When you begin the IRB application, there are two different submission models you will need to consider for your application. In the first model, the lead site and the participating sites submit together, meaning that all sites receive IRB approval at the same time and can initiate the study together. Of course, you can always add additional sites via an amendment in the future. The benefit of this model is that everyone is ready to begin the study together, and it requires only one main IRB submission to initiate the sites. The downside of this model is that approval of the application is contingent on all of the sites being ready for IRB submission at the same time. The issue with this is that there may be one or more sites who are taking longer to negotiate their Reliance agreement or their study-specific consent language. The delay at one site causes a delay for all the sites. In the second model, the initial IRB application only includes the lead site. This allows the overall study to be approved, and the lead site may begin study procedures. Then, each participating site is added to the study via an amendment application when they are prepared. The benefit of this model is that each site doesn't get added until everything is settled and they have met all of their requirements, avoiding delays with other sites. However, this model will also require more amendment submissions to the IRB. The University of Utah IRB will allow either model and will work with you to decide on the model that is best for your study. The lead study team will assist the University of Utah IRB to coordinate communication and study materials for the participating sites. You will need to draft a version of the consent document for each participating site. Generally, site-specific language will include person to contact, research-related injury, site-specific costs, and HIPAA authorization. The lead study team can choose to draft all versions of the consent themselves or can delegate this responsibility to each participating site. If you choose to draft the consent versions yourself, the University of Utah IRB can help you to collect the site-specific consent language using the ERICA system. You will be able to use this language to draft the consent documents for each site. If you choose to have each participating site draft their own consent form, you will be required to ensure that no changes to the study-specific language have been made, ensuring that the consent documents are consistent in these sections. It is the experience of the University of Utah IRB that though the lead study team may have extra work if they choose to draft all consent documents, this ultimately results in more efficient creation of documents and easier approval of the participating sites. It is important to note that there may be some situations where a site requires HIPAA authorization language to be in a separate document from their consent form. In this case, you will need to ensure that both documents are uploaded for that participating site. Additionally, the participating site should identify their site-specific recruitment plan. The lead study team may need to update the application in ERICA as necessary to accommodate site-specific needs. Once the lead study team submits the new study application, the standard University of Utah IRB review process will begin. The IRB will conduct an administrative pre-review and may request pre-board revisions. Remember, as the lead study team, you are responsible for completing all of the pre-board revisions. If the application includes participating sites to be approved as part of the initial IRB approval, the IRB will not send the application to board review until the Reliance agreements and consent documents for all sites listed in the application have been finalized. The IRB cannot complete our review to ensure that each site's requirements have been met until the agreements and consent documents are finalized. So this is the place where the application is going to wait if the participating sites have not completed their requirements in a timely manner. Revisions may be required as part of board review, and again, the lead study team is responsible for completing all of the post-board revisions. After the study has received final IRB approval, it will be your responsibility as the lead study team to disseminate the approval letter and all approved documents to all of the participating sites. The lead study team can work with the IRB to grant ERICA access to all participating sites, such that they can access the approval letter and approved documents on their own. This will be discussed in the Reliance consultation meeting. If participating sites are added after initial approval using an amendment application, the review process and lead study team responsibilities are the same. The participating study team is responsible for communicating necessary information to the lead study team so that the lead study team can evaluate the information and determine whether it should be submitted to the Single IRB for review. Additionally, it is an important reminder that University of Utah IRB approval of the participating sites is not the only requirement. Each participating site must ensure that they complete all of the non-IRB requirements at their local institution before they begin study procedures. The lead study team may choose to help participating studies to complete these requirements. The lead study team may also choose to document completion of these requirements in the overall study record, though the ultimate responsibility for completing and documenting these requirements remains with the participating study teams. We've done it. You have an approved study. Now what? Just like with other studies, you are going to have continuing review applications, amendments, and problem and event reports. All of these are submitted to the IRB using the ERICA system. For continuing reviews, the lead study team is responsible for collecting the site's statuses to complete the continuing review application. If participating study teams have access to ERICA, they will be able to enter their site's information on their own before the lead study team submits the continuing review to the IRB. This process is something you should consider when you are designing the study-specific operating procedures to ensure participating sites know how to execute their responsibilities. It is important to note that the study is assigned a single expiration date each year, so regardless of when each site received IRB approval to begin study procedures, every site will expire at the same time. The lead study team is responsible for submitting amendment applications to the IRB, whether the amendment changes the overall study or only affects a specific site. A communication plan between the lead study team and participating sites will be necessary to ensure amendments are submitted in a timely manner. Finally, the University of Utah IRB uses a report form for the submission of possible unanticipated problems and serious or continuing noncompliance. The standard University of Utah IRB policies for problem and event reporting will apply to all participating sites. The lead study team will need to ensure that the participating study teams understand and comply with the University of Utah IRB's reporting policies, which may differ from the policies they are used to with their own local IRB. Participating study teams must continue to ensure that they meet the requirements of their relying HRPP throughout the course of the study.
Lastly, we will discuss the requirements when the University of Utah relies on an external single IRB for review of research. It is important to remember the components of the University of Utah's Human Research Protection Program. Although the IRB review component may be outsourced to an IRB outside of the University of Utah, the university remains responsible for ensuring that all other components are completed prior to initiating a research project. In order to do this, the University of Utah investigators must continue to submit a study application in the ERICA system. The majority of the HRPP requirements are contained in the ERICA system and will continue to be verified there. In the case of HIPAA, the external single IRB will often act as the privacy board for the research. This means that all HIPAA determinations will be made by the single IRB. However, if the single IRB does not agree to this responsibility, the University of Utah IRB will act as the privacy board and will make all HIPAA determinations for the study at our site. All breaches of confidentiality affecting the University of Utah must be reported in the ERICA system and to the University Privacy Office as per standard university policy, regardless of the reporting procedures required by the single IRB. The University of Utah Conflict of Interest Committee will continue to identify and manage financial conflicts of interest for all university investigators and research staff. The University of Utah IRB will assist in communicating any conflict of interest management plans to the single IRB on your behalf. If study personnel change over the course of the study, the ERICA application must be amended so that the Conflict of Interest Committee can complete their review. The University of Utah IRB will continue to verify that you have completed the necessary training and qualification requirements according to University of Utah policy. This includes human subjects training such as CITI, good clinical practice training, and CV or resume verification. If there are any concerns, the University of Utah IRB will communicate with the local study team and the single IRB. If study personnel changes over the course of the study, the ERICA application must be amended so that the training and qualification requirements can be verified. Ancillary reviews are also required. At the University of Utah, these ancillary reviews formally include the Radiation Safety Committee, the Institutional Biosafety Committee, the Protocol Review and Monitoring Committee at Huntsman Cancer Institute, the Primary Children's Hospital Facilities Review, and the Resource for Genetic and Epidemiologic Research. The University of Utah IRB will continue to verify that the study meets all state law and institutional requirements. Additionally, the University of Utah IRB will help to communicate all local consent language requirements to the single IRB and lead study team. One specific institutional requirement involves use of the Investigational Drug Service for investigational drug studies. Though the University of Utah Investigational Drug Service does not conduct a review as part of the HRPP, they still access ERICA in order to implement investigational drug studies at the university. Thus, current versions of the approved protocol and investigator's brochure should be submitted in ERICA as necessary. As the University of Utah study team, you should be in communication with the lead study team and give applicable input in order to provide local context for how the study can be completed at Utah. You will want to consider things like the local recruitment. For instance, are there certain aspects to your prospective participant community that are unique and may affect your recruitment approach? Additionally, you may consider how the research will be affected by Utah state law. For example, Utah has different rules with regard to who is an appropriate legally authorized representative for research compared to other states. You will also need to communicate with the lead study team about your local data and safety monitoring needs and expectations. Will the local study team be required to complete its own monitoring? Or will the expectation be that your site records must be made available for an external monitor to review? During this planning stage, you will also need to think through which ancillary committee reviews will be required, considering the objectives and procedures of your protocol. You will want to thoroughly review your protocol to see if any of these committees need to review your application and plan for the time it will take for these reviews to be completed. Now you're ready to initiate the necessary agreements and applications to get the process moving for site activation. First, the University of Utah study team will need to submit a Reliance consultation request on the University of Utah IRB website in order to notify the University HRPP about your intention to rely on an external IRB as the single IRB. This request form is simple and asks for basic information about your study, who the single IRB will be, and what your study team's role is. Next, the University HRPP will schedule a consultation to discuss your proposal and determine if the Reliance request is feasible. This meeting gives you the opportunity to ask us questions or give us insight to some of the details and special considerations we may need to take into account as we are determining what to include in the Reliance agreement. After this meeting, the University HRPP either approves or denies your request to rely on the external single IRB. If the Reliance request is approved, the University HRPP, with help from the University IRB, will get in contact with the single IRB in order to negotiate and execute an appropriate Reliance agreement. While the University HRPP is working to get the Reliance agreement in place, you can get started on submitting the ERICA application, which is step 1 of the review process. The submission should include the full protocol, the consent document, and any other supplemental materials, such as recruitment materials and the investigator's brochure for drug trials. You can attach drafts of these documents or the IRB-approved versions if available. In step 2, the applicable ancillary committees will complete their review of the study in the usual order dictated by ERICA. In steps 3 through 5, the application will enter the University of Utah's IRB inbox, where the additional HRPP requirements will be verified. If the Reliance agreement with the single IRB is not yet complete, the HRPP review will be held, as the terms of the Reliance agreement help to determine what the HRPP needs to verify. The IRB staff complete the HRPP review. If the IRB staff determine that information needs to be provided to the lead study team or the single IRB, a letter will be sent with this information. A copy of the letter will also be sent to the University of Utah study team. Most often, this letter includes the local consent language that is required for the University of Utah. The University of Utah study team may also be asked to make changes or clarifications to the ERICA application. The single IRB will use the information provided in the letter to approve the University of Utah as a participating site. The ERICA application will wait in the PI corrections state until the single IRB approval documentation is ready. Once single IRB approval is obtained, the study team completes step 6 by attaching the approval documents in ERICA. This includes the single IRB approval letter for the University of Utah as a site, the approved protocol, the approved consent form for use at the University of Utah, and any other approved documents needed for use at Utah, such as the recruitment materials and the investigator's brochure. When all documents are attached, the University of Utah PI can resubmit. In Step 7, the study is activated by the HRPP and ERICA. You will receive a letter that states the study can proceed at our site. This letter will also detail the future responsibilities you have with regard to amendments, reporting requirements, and other submissions according to the Reliance Agreement. As a reminder, you must have Single IRB approval and University HRPP activation before you can begin research procedures at the University of Utah. This leads us to ongoing review requirements and reporting responsibilities that you will need to keep in mind after the initial study is approved. First, while continuing review is still required at the Single IRB annually, the University HRPP does not require a continuing review application. You will need to work out a plan with the lead study team and Single IRB for providing your annual update to them, including the status of the study and if there are any issues they should be aware of. Amendments require different consideration. If the study has changes that do not affect any of the University HRPP components, an amendment would only need to be submitted and approved by the Single IRB. However, some study changes may affect the University HRPP, such as changes to the protocol and investigator's brochure, so you will need to submit an amendment to the ERICA application as well. If there are site-specific changes to the study personnel, an amendment in ERICA is required. Reporting of problems and events to the University HRPP is required for any possible unanticipated problems and serious or continuing noncompliance that happen at the University of Utah. If a problem or event happens here, you should consult the standard University of Utah IRB reporting policies to determine if you should submit a report form. You will also need to evaluate the Single IRB's reporting policies to determine if a report to the Single IRB is also necessary. If problems or events occur at other sites, even if they affect the participants at the University of Utah, these do not need to be submitted in ERICA. The University of Utah HRPP still has the authority to monitor and audit the research conducted by your study team. This is because we still need to be aware of the research that is happening at our institution and how it affects participants at our site.
If you have any questions or feedback about this presentation, please feel free to contact the University of Utah IRB using the contact information provided.
Thank you for joining us.